With interest rates now at 45-year lows, plus a raft of federal and state government incentives assisting buyers, agents believe there's almost never been a better time to enter the property market. Real estate agents are predicting first home buyers and investors will hit the open houses and auctions this weekend.
But obviously with lower interest rates, they've got a greater capacity to borrow money, and I think they'll be out in force.
Properties below $400,000 are expected to be snapped up.
I think if you speak to all agents, they'll say that if you've got anything up to $350,000, you're getting enormous amount of inquiry, large numbers of people visiting the properties.
As for the stimulus package, it seems the hunter has missed out on major road and rail infrastructure funding. That's despite the government pledging $890 million to fix accident black spots, install rail boom gates and repair regional roads. The main benefits for our region will be 30 new defence homes and $200,000 for maintenance and building works at each public school. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
At this stage, we're looking forward to the end of February, where the Hunter Development Corporation will present its report to the state government.
Last spring was heralded as the Valley's best in generations, but virtually no rain in January has reduced feed to stubble, and now the region is teetering on the verge of marginal drought status.
I'm particularly concerned as we drive around, we see possible welfare cases coming up where people haven't quite trigged onto the fact that the pasture's running out that quickly.
Local farmers are being urged to take stock of their stock and prepare for worsening conditions in case late summer rains don't come.
It's a good wake-up call, I think, for some people to get out and have a look, make a plan. This could be the start of the next drought. We certainly hope it's not, but if it is, now's the time to start thinking.
In these kind of conditions, irrigation can be the saviour. Just look at the dip in these two paddocks. And while some rivers are already too low to draw from, many are making the most of the water while it lasts.
Already, Scone and Aberdeen are on level 1 water restrictions as the Upper Hunter Shire Council tries to limit the impact of ongoing hot weather on storage levels. Penny Evans, NBN News.
It's a frenetic time for the regional gallery staff, not only installing 4 new exhibitions, including Art Express, but they're also about to brief councillors on a new design for the redevelopment. Gone is this $37 million plan. Ron Ramsey has spent the last 10 months investigating a more modest concept.
We've worked up a design that will cover the 4 major things that we're after: additional display space, additional storage space, revenue generation through shops and cafe, etc., and also an education community space.
The gallery will be extended on 2 levels to the east and the south, almost doubling hanging space for the permanent collection.
The current entrance, we're wanting to move down closer to Derby Street. We're looking at a coffee shop, cafe, restaurant on the corner, so that again links with what's happening in Derby Street.
But he's not willing to divulge the price tag nor reveal the artist's impressions just yet. First, he must report back to council, while it also needs to acquire this RTA land next to the gallery, used as a staff car park. Meanwhile, there are concerns that the fig trees in Lehman Street are showing signs of deterioration. The council's arborist last night recommended they be removed within 7 years and replaced by more suitable trees. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
The tanker, carrying about 1,000 tonnes of diesel, rolled heading west through one of Maitland's 2 highway roundabouts early this morning. A rupture caused a small amount of diesel to spill onto the roadway. The remaining fuel had to be siphoned into another tank. Luckily, none of it leaked into nearby wetlands.
We got onto hazmat pretty quickly and that was controlled, and their intervention has minimised the damage from that.
The accident caused major delays on one of the New England highway's busiest sections, with traffic diverted around the scene. Police say it's too early to say whether speed was a factor.
The driver will be spoken to, and police are still investigating the collision as to the cause.
It seems when the roundabout is closed, so is the city. Accidents are common, and flooding during the June long weekend storms also cut Maitland in half.
It isolates the hospital, it can isolate the fire brigade and the ambulances and so on, so it's serious for us.
Council is pushing for a local bypass to be built and also wants the state and federal government to commit funding for the F3 link to Branxton to provide another alternate route.
I guess it's up to us and the community to put their wholehearted support behind us, and unfortunately it takes something like this today to highlight it, so we can't afford to back off it.
Penny Evans, NBN News.
Their incredible noise-making, ground-shaking, big trucks. And come Saturday night, they'll be wowing crowds at the Newcastle Showgrounds during the Monsters Tour of Destruction. If today's demonstration is anything to go by, the show won't be all smooth sailing. But drivers say no matter what happens, they'll have it covered.
Even when you make a little bit of a mistake like that, the old monster truck sorts it out for you. You just got to sit there for a few seconds, it flattens everything that's way and just sorts it out for you.
Glendale's own Derek Burton will be doing his best to impress in the freestyle motocross. And he's feeling the pressure.
There is a really high possibility that one of us could crash.
And it's not only the monster trucks people will get to see. This year there's also a monster bike. It's cost $250,000 to build, is 3.5 metres high and weighs 14 tonnes. Not only that, it's just as capable of crushing cars as the monster trucks.
Drivers promise by the time the show ends, not one car will be left standing.
If we don't crush the cars, if we don't melt them with the jet vans, and if we don't wreck them in the Demolition Derby, this year we're going to get them with dropping them out of the cranes.
Madeline Bond, NBN News.
Just a few days before he begins his Asian odyssey, Joel Griffiths received some last-minute treatment on his tender hamstring. His loan deal with Beijing runs until December, but if he impresses his hosts, the move could become permanent.
That's up to the management of both parties, but I'm just going over there and just try and do my best for Beijing and hopefully enjoy myself at the same time.
Leaving the Jets was the toughest decision he's ever made, but with the lure of big money coming from Asian clubs, the former Golden Boot says the FFA needs to find a solution to keep our top players at home.
I know about 8 players that have been approached by Asian clubs and that are on the verge of leaving. So
Griffiths admits the breakup of the grand final team was a factor in his decision to head overseas, a move he wouldn't have made if he wasn't joining forces with brother Ryan. The fact brother Adam wasn't re-signed for next season hurt even more.
With Adam going, obviously, it didn't help the cause. I think he's a good player, but he's my brother, and I always got a soft spot for him. So
Joel hopes the supporters will forgive him if he returns to the Jets.
I spoke to a couple of fans here and there when I'm walking in the shops and that, and they're disappointed, obviously. But I'm sure if I do come back in December and start banging in goals, I'm sure it'll be all forgotten.
The Victorian Tigers were well prepared for the Hurricanes, opening the scoring in the first minute. But Big Mitch Baird was keen to impress in front of his home crowd and quickly hit back. The next one went the Tigers' way, and it appeared the scoreline would continue to seesaw until this individual performance from Victorian Anthony Edwards, who stole the ball and swam the length of the pool to score. At the Hunter end, Baird was swamped in front of the net, but he managed to play a pivotal role in the next goal, setting up American import Russell Simpkins for a tap-in. The Tigers had less flair but still got the right result, as Baird continued his struggle to get the monkey off his back. Fellow coastie Daniel Robinson was the next to score, his wide shot perfectly placed. Scott Berry also beat Victoria's goalie to secure an equaliser. When the teams changed sides, Simpkins lifted his game and the crowd to net his second. But the Tigers remained in control, drawing Angus Crowley out of the goal before lobbing the ball over his head. The goalie's body was on the line the next time the ball came his way, but it wasn't enough, the hosts going down by 4 at the siren. The final score 17 goals to 13. Renee Clough, NBN News.
There were no red and yellow flags on Newcastle beaches. The parking police were nowhere in sight. Parks and roads were quiet without council maintenance workers, while garbage bins sat idle. Today's strike by council employees created disruptions across the city, and it could continue tomorrow. The United Services Union headed back to the Industrial Relations Commission following a dispute over councillors calling for greater efficiency and for garbage services to go to competitive tender, which could mean job losses.
Quite simply, the decision has been made without any advice from management, without any consultation with the employees, and therefore is in breach of the award.
The 750 members elected to go on strike today and tomorrow and banned overtime work for the weekend.
These are in total breach of Commissioner Stanton's recommendations, and it's illegal industrial action under the Industrial Relations Act. We think this is a fairly irresponsible action. People are being hurt.
But after several hours, the council and union reached an agreement. The USU will meet with staff at 8:30 a.m. tomorrow at EA Stadium to decide whether they'll return. Commissioner Stanton has directed the union to recommend to its members they resume. He said there are risks to health and safety for the people of Newcastle and the Hunter, not potentially, but very real risks. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
Like a king without its crown, the Point Stevens Lighthouse has been looking a little bare after the balustrade built in 1932 had to be removed because of rust. The cavalry were called in this afternoon with a reinforcement. Literally, the replacement rail is made of stainless steel. Strong winds made positioning the structure a little difficult, but with a bit of manoeuvring, gently, and it was in. A crowning moment, you might say, for the historic building. The new guard is built to last at least another 100 years.
And also mimics the original 1862 balustrade, so sort of satisfies the safety requirements and the heritage requirements.
National Parks maintains the site as part of its charter, but the lighthouse still plays an important role reigning over the Point's rocky shores.
The lighthouse forms sort of a coastal highway with other lighthouses in New South Wales, and it's got a lot of local and statewide significance.
The old Lighthouse Keepers Inn, damaged by fire in the 1990s, is still a ruin, but there is the chance it could be salvaged, although not without significant funding. However, the service's next big job is a new coat of paint for the lighthouse, set to get underway later this year. Penny Evans, NBN News.
At 37, East Maitland mum Bente Talseth Palmer is one of the rapidly growing number of women waiting longer to have children.
I've been quite career-minded and haven't met the one I wanted to start a family with before that, so yeah.
Little Sonny has changed everything.
I guess we were the one of the lucky ones that it happened when we wanted it to be.
Many others aren't so fortunate. In Australia, the average age of women giving birth is now around 30, but more and more are trying to fall pregnant even later.
There are a large number of ladies who are now trying to conceive in their mid-30s, even in their early 40s, at which point the egg quality is normally deteriorated to a point where it's impossible to have a live birth.
Fertility rates drop dramatically after 35, and women who do conceive face greater risks of miscarriage and deformities in the fetus. Associate Professor Eileen McLaughlin is leading a project which holds promise of improving fertility. Her team has discovered a protein, seen here in a mouse egg cell, that appears to have a major role in controlling egg development.
If we can understand exactly how this protein works, then we'll be able to improve egg quality and improve maturation of eggs, particularly for assisted reproduction techniques.
The research team has just won a $400,000 grant to continue its work, hoping to spread this kind of happiness to other couples.
Doing a post session today, it's the best it's felt. Previously to that, it felt a little bit tender sort of running and mainly pulling up from running sort of thing. So no, it was a good session today, and I'm happy I got through that, and hopefully it's just going to improve from here.
Plenty of unfamiliar faces at Jets training as several hopefuls continue their trials, but the new signings were making their presence felt. Lubo Milicevic boasts an enviable resume, plying his trade in Switzerland before attracting interest from English Premier League clubs. The move to Newcastle represents a fresh start, after Milicevic endured a frustrating stint with the Melbourne Victory.
I've got a lot of good mates in this team, and I love the way they try to play. I love the way Gary coaches, encourages the team to play, and that's how I want to play football.
The coach is already a fan.
Just going on the first session, he's in fantastic shape. He brings real leadership.
The defender should become the first Australian to play in both the European Champions League and the Asian Champions League.
It's a nice feeling, having those kind of little achievements along the way. But to be honest, I wouldn't care if we're playing the local pub league. I just want to play.
Dutchman Donny de Groot was signed before arriving in Australia, a process which has caused headaches for the Jets in the past. The man known as Dutchy thinks this time will be different.
I've spoken to some people I trust in Holland, in Murray O'Bain and Fons Kroendijk, so they've got good reputations over there, and they highly recommended him.
The striker likes what he sees so far, but admits he knows little about the A-League.
My agent called me about a week ago, and the transfer window was closing 2nd of February, so I had to make a very quick decision.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
when I arrived at the Mariners, they welcomed me with open arms, and to be offered a position somewhere else, it's just like any other job in the industry. I think he was very happy to hear from me, and he's planning around me. So that's nice to know that a coach has got confidence in a player that he really wanted to pursue.
I was pretty happy at the time. I never really thought I would have, when I was younger, I never really thought I would have achieved that.
These images show just how intense last night's blaze was. Firefighters say it ignited just after 8. Neighbours say it was terrifying.
The windows started popping and the motorbikes in the garage, you could hear them, the fuel tanks were just exploding.
With no concern for their own safety, Stacey Cook and Dryden McDonald rushed to the burning house, believing one of their neighbours was inside.
We smelt some smoke and jumped the fence just here. And there was already a couple of people trying to kick in the door. I got there just as the door flung open, just stepped inside and just made sure there was nobody in there. It was just screaming out and stuff like that. It was just was pitch black.
While no one was home, their action saved 2 dogs trapped inside the property. Firefighters say early indications show the blaze started in the garage and was possibly caused by an electrical or mechanical fault. They believe the flames then spread to the rest of the building through the roof and were possibly fuelled by ceiling insulation. At 10 o'clock this morning, this Parkway Avenue home at Raymond Terrace caught alight.
I got a phone call from my mum. She was in tears at work, and she said, "My house is on fire." And I just threw the phone and I bolted.
Firefighters contained the blaze to the back 2 rooms, much to the Price family's joy.
Our main concern was private possessions, so we got the most important thing to us out.
And what was that?
My father's ashes.
Just yesterday, another Raymond Terrace family of 9 lost their house. 6 homes in the Hunter have now been destroyed by fire in the past 4 weeks.
It is unusual for sure, especially concentrated in the Raymond Terrace area. I've no idea why, it's just in this area.
Today, Port Stephens Mayor Bruce McKenzie offered two of the families $1,000 to help them get through the tough times ahead. Madeline Bond, NBN News.
Who'd actually want to step into a ring with a man who can do this? Former Knights hard man Tony Butterfield is probably the only one.
Gordy and I are old mates, so I'm sure if the opportunity arises, he won't be slipping those into me.
It's all pending Tallis, who retired from league with a neck problem, gaining a medical clearance. And he's not alone. In something of a sign of the times, almost all the ex-players have committed to the amateur bouts, pending the okay from doctors, while general fitness is another issue.
Oh, I need to do a lot, actually. I done a little bit of Butsy yesterday and I nearly died. It was hard.
Billed as the big show, the league fights will only be part of the entertainment before the feature bout between Newcastle's Australian cruiserweight champion Daniel Aman and Sydney's Jamie Witters. But even the man they call the Doberman is keen to see the curtain raisers.
Oh, you can't go past Gordy and Butts, mate, but I think I'm happy to see any of them go. They're all tough guys, all good athletes in their day, and probably got a few punches left in them, I'd say.
To be staged in the Newcastle Basketball Stadium on March 7, the evening will raise funds for the neighbouring PCYC and Knights Old Boys charities, and there's still room for one more stoush should any retired sportsman be game.
Surfers, sailors, cricketers, soccer players, you name it. But give me a call and we'd love to get you on. We'll raise funds.
Jim Callanan, NBN News.
It was a great escape of sorts, getting this 12-metre yacht through the increasingly shallow Swansea Channel. For years it's been filling with sand and silt, making it near impassable. Today, Doug Coulter decided to get out.
The way the channel's silting up sort of makes me think that it's not going to get any better, so we're better off taking the boat to Newcastle and get out of the lake before we get landlocked.
It took two boats working in tandem to manoeuvre the vessel through what's become an underwater obstacle course. One to heel it over, while the other worked as a tugboat to pull it through. It's claimed the frustrating situation isn't just hurting yachtsmen, tourism is also being affected.
We don't get any visiting boats in here anymore. Swansea Channel's becoming notorious everywhere, and people just don't want to come here.
Lake Macquarie Yacht Club fears more of its 350 members could follow suit.
That's the first one to go, but I know of at least 2 or 3 others who are seriously thinking about it.
The club has been urging the New South Wales Lands Department and Lake Macquarie Council to dredge the area.
We've been in constant consultation with them over the last 18 months, 2 years or so, and we're trying to get some action, but it just doesn't seem to be going anywhere at the moment.
Unlike some local yachties. Madeline Bond, NBN News.
Don't be fooled, it's a sprint series by name, but it's more marathon by nature. When the fleet of 42 skiffs greeted the start boat this morning for the opening heat, they knew the winner would only be crowned after some 21 races back-to-back. A knockout-style regatta, boats were eliminated as the day wore on, before 8 remained for the final. And that was always going to be a challenge, with Olympic gold medalist Nathan Wilmot, one of the many sailors boasting impressive credentials here. Sailing may have been good, but surely if there was a sport to be involved with today, it had to be the Hunter Branch Championships at Fingal Bay, where the race was on just to get wet. In the men's ski relay, Redhead was always going to take some beating after Mitchell Thompson got the club off to a flyer. And when he tagged Peter Scott, the race was as good as won. The former Olympic kayaker and Australian ski champion powering away from the field. It was left to rising star of the surf, Michael Booth, to round things out for an easy win. The overall branch title will be decided tomorrow.
Witnesses say the fire in Wallumbye Road spread so quickly it's amazing anyone survived. 18-year-old neighbour Kerwin Malone was at home when the blaze broke out. At 10:30 he rushed next door and realised his best mate's family was in trouble.
Every time I tried to put the fire out myself before the fireys got here, it was like too hard. And
23-year-old Derek Rumble had managed to get 2 of his children aged 4 and 1 outside. His 3-year-old son remained trapped. Kerwin and Derek tried in vain to enter the house, but couldn't get closer than 2 metres.
the heat was just too much for us. We couldn't bear it, and every time we did get close enough to get in there, it was just knocking us back because of like the little explosions of the windows blowing out.
Fire and ambulance crews soon arrived, but it was too late for the toddler.
In the end, both me and Derek both broke down in tears. Anything that they need me for, I'll try and help them out with. And when this happened, it's like, yeah, I just instant reaction, didn't think, just try and get in there and save the little boy.
Tony Rockley has been an ambulance officer in Muswellbrook for 20 years. He says incidents like this rock the tight-knit community.
The street was absolutely full of people. They were all out. It was an extremely hot night, and they were out assisting in any way that they could. It's very tragic circumstances, and we feel very much for the family.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
If there was any nerves from the leader, she wiped those away on the very first hole with an approach worthy of a good finish, and her lead was 4. Still, the challenges came. Tammy Durden played the final round with Hull and never let the leader out of sight. Sarah Kemp made her move before the turn. 3 birdies and 4 holes saw her fly up the leaderboard. The circuit's glamour girl, Anna Rawson, has made headlines for some ill-worded comments of late, but she let her game do the talking today. A late charge, and she was also in the mix. But all the while, Hull was holding firm, the leader refusing to give anyone a shot. She moved to 16 under and from there was never going to be beaten. Finishing a 5-shot winner, Hull was just the third Aussie to get her hands on the famous glassware. It was always going to be her final curtain call, but it wasn't meant to end quite like this. A week after captain Cheryl Salisbury retired from football, Joanne Peters drew a close on her 110 international game career last night in Canberra. But the Italians crashed her party in a big way. They led 3-0 by half-time and there was just no stopping the tourists' rout. Although Amber Nelson was involved, boots and all, it wasn't a great night for any of the Newcastle Matildas. Striker Katie Gill was replaced not long into the second half, while Lauren Colethorpe missed a golden chance to draw Australia back into the game. The 5-1 thrashing hardly the way to send out a player of Peter's calibre, but few in the Matildas will forget her contribution since debuting back in 1996.
As we saw at New Lambton in 2006, even properties in the suburbs can be threatened by bushfire. The Rural Fire Service says the most effective way residents can protect their home is to clear their gutters and remove anything that could catch on fire.
Get all of the combustibles, put them together, mulch them, when in some areas you can burn them with a hazard reduction certificate.
Vines like this are a fire hazard, and if you have them, a nearby water supply is essential.
You can have sprinklers on here and that could also reduce the risk of that catching alight.
If a fire is approaching, residents should close all windows and doors, fill gutters with water and wear protective clothing. And the RFS says it's important to decide early whether you're going to leave or stay and defend your property.
You often hear about people hopping in their cars and leaving in the last minute, and as we saw in Victoria, that's fatal. That can be a fatal mistake.
Lauren Bladwell, NBN News.
As you can imagine, schools don't have enough classrooms, and Year 6 doesn't have a classroom today because of the fire.
Last season, Peter Haynes bought himself a Jets playing shirt. Today, the Broadmeadow striker earned one.
I feel 20 years old again. Buzz out of bed in the morning, get up and race over here to training. So it's what I've wanted all my life. Now I'm here. Now I'll take the next step and hopefully push for a starting spot.
At 26, the former NBN League Golden Boot has broken through to earn a contract with the A-League club alongside his former Magic teammate Joel Woods. Turning his back on a deal to Jets, the gamble has paid off.
The last couple of months I've been just living off my own back, travelling down from the Central Coast. Don't really have a car in that at the moment either, so it's been a bit tough, but yeah, it's really good to get the chance now.
Debuting in the old NSL, Mitchell Johnson has spent almost as much time below ground than above it in the last 4 years working in the mines. He's tossed that in to revive his football dreams.
It's definitely a dream come true. I've been waiting for this for a long time, 4 years now, so it's been good. Hopefully I can prove that I've still got the goods.
With 2 days left to complete their ACL roster, the coach may yet get one more. While Adam Griffiths looks like he's staying for the early part of the Asian campaign, despite his pending deal with the Gold Coast.
We expect him to have the right attitude and the right mentality towards the training and games, and until now he's been good. As we all know, Adam at his peak and at his top can contribute quite a lot in this Champions League.
Jim Callanan, NBN News.
A baby's windpipe isn't much larger than a drinking straw, making it difficult to inspect. But this very fine bronchoscope will make that job easier, allowing airways to be looked at with speed and accuracy without interrupting respiration. The bronchoscope will also be used during operations and for babies who are having trouble breathing.
So it enables us to use some of the techniques that we've been using in adults for a number of years for intubating and diagnosing the airway in infants right down to newborns.
Up until now, medical staff have either had to use an instrument about twice the size of this one or have been forced to use alternative techniques.
We get there in the end, but they're not as elegant or as refined, so it's nice to be able to use this stuff.
The $18,000 needed to buy the bronchoscope was today handed over by charity organisation Macquarie Honda. The device will be in use at the hospital within a month.
Well, we're able to provide, as I said, state-of-the-art equipment that's here in the Hunter for the children and their families to be able to stay here, not have to leave the town and leave the environment.
Colleen West, NBN News.
The first box full of donations for the Victorian bushfire appeal was packed and loaded this morning. Jodie Diet has spent the past 24 hours contacting Western Lake Macquarie's schools, clubs and businesses, asking them to join her in donating household goods to the scores of Victorian families who have lost everything.
Because there was a need for it and I couldn't not do anything.
The tragedy has even touched the region's school children.
They've come into me this morning after their parents have got word of it, and it's just they've all come to the counter and said, "Oh, Mrs. Davey, we got new toys at Christmas time, but we don't need them, so can we send them down to the kids down there that haven't got any toys?"
Boxed donations can be dropped off at Toronto Workers Club on the 2nd of March, where John Farraher Removals and Transport will collect them. Meanwhile, prayers have been offered for bushfire victims in Hamilton during a vigil at Wesley Uniting Church. Most of the vigil was conducted in silence, with Vivaldi playing in the background. A service of reflection and remembrance will be held at Christchurch Cathedral at 6 o'clock tomorrow night. Madeline Bond, NBN News.
Gloucester isn't a big town, so for 1,000 people to cram into the recreational hall on a Monday night, something serious must be happening. These residents came to let the Reece government and Gloucester Resources know they're ready for war.
There's too much at stake not to win it. So we'll be fighting right down to the to the last shovelload of coal. They are not getting access to our town.
The Mayor is prepared to draw all weapons to protect the valuable tourism industry and farming land.
This is a jewel in the valley, and to actually even consider doing open cut coal mining surrounding this area and losing those valuable economic indicators is just not on.
Gloucester has found brothers in arms in the Karoona Coal Action Group who are trying to stop BHP moving onto the productive Liverpool plains.
The fight for food and water security across New South Wales is certainly on.
We know that we're not alone in this, and it's only standing together that we can make a difference.
As a rich agricultural area, Gloucester's situation poses an interesting question, not just for the Hunter Valley, but for the rest of the nation. Do we, as a community, value harvesting coal more than we value harvesting food? For if that's the case, then surely the town's fight is fruitless.
We cannot afford to let a minuscule amount of prime agricultural land be cut by 1,000 knives of inappropriate mining developments allowed by fundamentally flawed planning laws.
The leases expire in June. The company could not be reached for comment. Penny Evans, NBN News.
3 years ago, there was plenty of opposition to the sale of Ferris Oval to make way for a new bowling club and allow for the expansion of Charlestown Square. Today, members of the Central Charlestown Rugby League Club couldn't be happier with the results of a deal council struck with developer GPT Group, which included $4 million worth of improvements. Due to the loss of Ferris Oval, the agreement was that St John Oval, home to Central Charlestown, would be overhauled.
It was fairly well run down, and it was in bad need of some work, and so this come at a very, very good time for our club.
It was a single rugby league field. It had no car parking, very dilapidated amenities.
The complex now features a grandstand, a 160-space car park, new change rooms and an amenities block, even a second field.
To see this facility now, it's 2 grounds, all modern, the lighting, it's just a really magnificent facility.
8 games will be played at the new ground on Saturday. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
It'll be located near Nobby's Surf Club building to the easterly side of the building, and it'll be open by the 2nd anniversary, which is June this year.
If people taken the proper precautions and hired a licensed builder, they would have to have home warranty in place to undertake their construction work.
This 1-carat cognac diamond could soon be on someone's menu. Colin Fisher bought the $5,000 jewel in a bid to cash in on this year's Valentine's Day hype.
Valentine's Day should be all about sausages. Chocolates and roses have had their run. It's our turn this year.
The Edgeworth-based butcher plans to use the gem to lure customers into his store by hiding it in a special sausage.
Everybody who purchases goes into a draw. Out of that draw we'll pull 12 finalists and they will get to choose a sausage which will be cooked, one of which will have a gem in it.
And ladies are already lining up for their chance to win the big one.
A $2 sale will get you into the draw, so yeah, pop up, buy 2 sausages if you like, and we'll put your name in the barrel.
The sausages will be cooked up outside his shop at 11 a.m. on Saturday. Colin says he hopes his idea will make it a Valentine's Day to remember for one lucky lady.
There's so much bad news out there at the moment, so if we can put a smile on somebody's face, all the better.
Madeline Bond, NBN News.
It's been 8 years since Dan Toller walked the field he played on as a junior, but hasn't it changed since then? On Saturday night, he'll return to the redeveloped St John's Oval as a knight in a trial match to be played over 3 periods against local clubs in what's sure to be a willing hit-out.
They'll come out fire and they'll want to put shots on us, and we've just got to cop it sweet and go up and play the ball.
We're playing enthusiasm and passion there.
Former knight Wayne Richards coaches the Butcher Boys these days, and they'll kick things off on their new look home ground.
The boys are really looking forward to it, and they play against the calibre of those players. It's the boys will know they've been in a footy match for sure.
The second stanza will also mark Maitland's return to the top grade, given it sat out the last 2 seasons.
Fortunately, I guess only playing half an hour, adrenaline will get you through most of that, so that's the hope.
While the Souths boys know they're in for a fair hit-out too.
And I think they're just going to cherish the moment, really. 25 minutes against NRL stars. I think Ben Cross is playing, Steve Simpson, they're all playing.
So too the trio battling to form the halves combination for Game 1 of the NRL, while the club's major off-season bye, hooker Isaac De Goey, will also get his first run in a Knights jumper. Jim Callanan, NBN News.
The world thinks this is more prestigious than a World Championships, and for me I think it'd be one of the biggest races of my life. It's always been a dream of mine, but not one that I ever thought I could attain because of the cost of swimming English Channel.